One of the main reasons why I believe that SLPs should start private practices is to create an ideal work environment that suits their interest, personality, and season of life. And this is just what Emily McCullough of Austin, Texas has done. After working in nearly every traditional pediatric setting across a few different states even, she decided that she wanted to offer private therapy services. So she joined my beginner program, the Start Your Private Practice System, to learn exactly how to get started step by step. And today, you are going to hear the full story of how and why she got started. So stay tuned. I'm Jenna Castro-Casbon, speech-language pathologist, business coach, and creator of the Start Your Private Practice System. And I'm on a mission to turn stuck SLPs into successful private practitioners. If you're tired of dealing with high productivity requirements, high caseload sizes, and low pay, it's time to take control of your professional, personal, and financial life and finally get the freedom, flexibility, and financial abundance that you deserve by working with private clients in your own practice. Join me here each week as I share tips, best practices, and inspirational interviews on the Private Practice Success Stories podcast. If you're a private practitioner or one in the making, you're in the right place, so let's get started. Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Private Practice Success Stories podcast. This week, I'm going to introduce you to Emily McCullough, who started a private practice to fit with her life. Now, she's only been at it for about a year, so those of you who are brand new or just starting to dream about private practice, make sure you listen to this entire episode because Emily is just a few steps ahead of you. Emily hits on a lot of really important things in this episode, but here are a few things in particular that I want you to be listening for. First off, listen to how she describes why she wanted to shift into private practice. I talk to students in the Start Your Private Practice System about this all the time, but it's really important to identify your why, your driving force for choosing private practice. Emily's why might be different than yours, but equally important. Another thing that Emily talks about is which service delivery model she and her clients prefer using. One of the best things about private practice is that you get to choose who you serve and how you serve them. Because in most settings, you don't get to choose which clinical populations you treat. A caseload is assigned to you. SLPs feel much more fulfilled when you can choose which clients to work with, which clients light you up and allow you to do your best work. Similarly, the ability to choose service delivery models that work best for your clients and for you is also very appealing. I hear nightmare stories from school SLPs who have crazy mixed groups, and as a result, are frustrated and saddened by the lack of progress that their clients are able to make. In our interview, Emily describes how rewarding it is to work with clients individually and how they're able to make much more progress because of these individualized and personalized services. As you listen to this episode, I want you to think about parallels between Emily's life and your own. Like I said, she's only about a year into this and has created a new job for herself that she loves and which you can do too. So let's meet Emily. All right. So before we dive in, can you please share your name, your location, and the name of your private practice?
Yes, my name is Emily McCullough, and my pronouns are she, her, and I live in Austin, Texas, and the name of my practice is Parade Pediatric Speech Therapy.
Perfect. So you and I have been friends online for a little while, right? And you've been a member of Start Your Private Practice. Mm-hmm. And I've enjoyed getting to know you. And I'm really excited to have our podcast audience get to know you. I know that you're in about the first year of your private practice. And so I'm excited to tell people, what that's like, going from startup mode to starting to think about how to maybe grow this thing a little bit. But before we learn more about your private practice, could you tell us a little bit about, becoming an SLP?
Yes. So SLP is my second career. I majored in Spanish in college. And so right after college, I started doing some medical interpreting. I got a job at a health department and started interpreting for patients, vaccines, just kind of different things in the health department. And then I got a job at a hospital and interpreted for the hospital. And I was actually able to go to some births and interpret for births, which was really interesting. And so from there, my career kind of evolved into case management. So I did some case management for Medicaid patients and also at an early Head Start center. So I was the family services coordinator, which really meant just helping families get the services that they needed. And one of those services was actually speech therapy. So I remember very vividly a speech therapist coming into the daycare where I was working, and she did the PLS. Of course, I didn't know what it was at that point, but I'm like, oh, there's this purple bear and the kid is playing and this is cool. And I remember, being the person that would actually refer the kids out for the specialists. And I kept thinking, I was like, man, it would be really cool for me to be the specialist that they refer to, as the next step in my career. Well, ironically, or not so ironically, my sister is a speech therapist. So shout out to my sister. And of course, I had no idea what she did. I was like, oh, you're a speech therapist. Great. You see kids. And that's kind of the extent of what I knew. And so as a lot of us, that will resonate as we explain a lot what we do. So I remember calling her and I'm like, I'm doing this interpreting thing and I'm really loving working with kids and being in the daycare and working with families. And is there, what do you do? And I saw this speech therapist and maybe I could be that kind of specialist because, interpreting is communication. So you're really having to, look at the nonverbals when you're interpreting. You're having to online, translate and interpret what they're saying and get that message across and also have that cultural, humility and learning process of what is going on in this interaction. And so to me, once I figured out what speech therapists do and what it all encompasses, it was like, oh, this is interesting. That seems to meld. And there was a need, there's a need for bilingual speech therapists, especially in Spanish. And so I was like, okay, well, this is let's do this. And so GRE happened, had to do some math review. And I was considered an older student where, I guess it was about 8 years from my bachelor's to getting the master's. So I really had to go back into school mode and figure that out. And I applied to UT Austin, which had a bilingual speech therapy program. And I applied to some other ones around the country, but I ended up getting into UT. I came here to Austin and I was just like, wow, this is the place. I came in April, so it was not hot and it was like the perfect temperature. And I'm like, this feels great. This is awesome. I love this. And I just love the vibe of the town. And, I hadn't heard back from the other schools and I think I was waitlisted at one and I was like, let's do it. UT Austin is it. I want to move to Texas. And yeah, here I am.
Well, I love that. And I really love how you shared your journey. And as you were going through talking about, communicating with families and then, being part of that referral process, I was like, wow, I can really see how that led you in the direction of becoming an SLP. Very cool. And I also like what you said about being a bilingual SLP and that we need more bilingual SLPs. And so I think that's also very cool. So, okay, so you go to UT Austin and you're in grad school or you graduate. What was your CF and early career now that your second career, I suppose, as an SLP like?
So getting out of school, I had an internship at the Children's Hospital here in Austin, and that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I hope I can get this job. And so I did get my CF there, and it was amazing. It was really hard. It was a really hard setting to just kind of go into. I remember thinking, I'm still learning how to do just basic artic therapy. Not that artic is basic. It can be really hard, but just getting a kid to kind of, focus during that 30 minutes and do the articulation. But then the next appointment, it would be kind of a severe case, and it was kind of like that. And so as a CF, learning all of that at once, just with so many, we all do that. I guess that's really like that in any setting because we're just anything and everything type of thing when you get out of school. But I was lucky to have some great mentors at the hospital. And so that was really, really awesome. And then from there, I found out that I wasn't really that into feeding. And that was one of the areas of the hospital that was really needed. And so I decided to kind of see what else was out there. And so then I transitioned to a contract position in the schools that needed bilingual therapists. And I stayed in the schools for a few years, moved around quite a bit, met my wife here in Austin. Actually, while I was writing my thesis in grad school, I was like, oh, it's time to start dating. I don't know why. But anyway, did. And we met, and then I had the hospital position, and then went to the schools. And then we ended up moving to Colorado, and then to Atlanta before we made our way back to Austin. So I've been in different states. I've done early intervention. I've done elementary schools, middle schools, outpatient clinics as well. And so most recently I've been doing outpatient and also teletherapy privately as well. It's been my most recent setting. So I've pretty much done all the settings in the pediatric world.
So you obviously had to add private practice to your belt, right?
Yeah, it's time. Yeah.
It's time. So when did you start to think about, you know what, I want to start doing some private therapy?
Well, it's really not been that long, because it's so funny, because I never even envisioned having my own practice. I just was used to working for other people and working in these different settings. And in the past, I'd say like 2 years, maybe, I've been doing some private work through another contract. And I really just fell in love with teletherapy. And that was actually before COVID. And so this was like a few years ago when I was like, I had a longer commute, and I was thinking, I know teletherapy is a thing. We have some kids that have long commutes into the clinic. And, I kind of worked with the owner. I said, is there some way we can maybe think about teletherapy? And so we did. And I just fell in love with it. I found that I really like working from home. I really like connecting with kids in their homes, and, the parents or caregivers are nearby, and that's really great for carryover. The families love it. They're all about, we don't have to travel and sit in the waiting room, and, all that kind of thing. So it just was such a great thing to discover. I know SLPs have been doing teletherapy for a very long time, but it wasn't something that was really in my world until, I don't know, just a few years ago before COVID. And now with COVID, the transition into all teletherapy for me has been easier, just because I was doing it before. But I decided to still contract with that place, but also start my own company as well, teletherapy company, because I just love it so much.
And that's something that I see a lot, like in various Facebook groups, right? People will say things like, what's the best teletherapy company to work for? Or, how much does so-and-so pay, or whatever. And so whenever people ask, what's the best teletherapy company to work for? I always say yours, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so tell the listeners who might be thinking about starting their own private practice with, just doing, or I don't mean to say just doing teletherapy, but, with teletherapy as your main service. What has that been like for you specifically?
It's been less daunting, honestly, because I hear you say this too in the group or in different things, it's like private practice, the old school way, or what I used to think of was like the brick and mortar, you have to hire, you're the owner, and you have all these therapists. And I just never saw myself doing that. It just wasn't something that I don't know. I just didn't see that in my path. But then when teletherapy came, the flexibility that it offered, and also the low overhead, because I'm not renting a space, I'm home. And also, just getting started, it didn't seem as daunting. Of course, with your program, it was like, okay, I have this checklist of things to do. And again, that made it feel a lot less daunting as well. And I have that support, which I've really appreciated. But, since I was doing the teletherapy privately anyway, on the side, and still, contracting, and then now doing my own, it's just not that big of a stretch, because it's really just getting the EMR, that I needed. Just little things like that was like, oh, what EMR do I get? But once I decided, it was like, okay, I got this EMR. It does everything. It's great. And getting the legal stuff, ducks in a row for that, like you say, but you had a great checklist for that. And that felt a lot less daunting. So it really was just deciding to do it was really the biggest hurdle, which again, I know you say as well, like just start, but it's easy to say, you're sitting around thinking, well, I should, I don't know. And I had your emails, and I had the information, and for months and months and months, I'm like, well, maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll do, and finally I just said, let's do this, let's just try it. And who knows, let's just see what happens. And so far it's just been really cool to do. And just not as, you build it up in your mind of like, oh, it's, all this stuff I have to do. And, but really it just doing things one step at a time, you get there. So.
Well, and I think that you're absolutely right. The just keep moving forward, right? And that you can really design a private practice that works for you, like your personality and also, your season of life, right? Some people, who either, I don't know, have busy lives, have kids at home, have whatever, like you can either stay small then or grow bigger, but it's like choose your own adventure, right? You can do whatever it is that you want to do, but none of this is going to happen unless you decide to do it and then do the steps to make it happen. So I also really like that you said that you had started doing telepractice like before COVID, right? Because I think that, there were like I don't know what percentage of SLPs, let's say, were doing teletherapy before, but obviously now it's, like 100% of SLPs have had to switch to that model. Once this is kind of, air quotes over, do you think that you will continue with exclusively telepractice, or do you think that you might also do in-person visits, or what do you think that might look like for you?
I think that I will probably stay teletherapy. I thought about maybe getting a little office space, close to my house, type of thing, but I'm not sure. Because I've seen so much success with the teletherapy. And, I'm also licensed in Illinois, which I forgot to say, but I can see kids in Texas or Illinois. So really expanding out the geographic area that I can see kids. I love the parent coaching, the caregiver coaching. I just love connecting with kids this way. It's convenient, it's effective. It seems to be a really good fit for a lot of kids and a lot of families. And it's a really great fit for me too. So, the jury's out on that. I don't know. I really am just going to have to see how everything evolves. And then if I'm, really feeling like, man, it would be great to get into an office or, connect that way with people in my local community, then that could definitely be a possibility down the line.
Keep your options open.
Right? Yeah, that's the thing. You can kind of do what you want. You can, like you said, kind of make your way and make those decisions and readjust, see where you are in a few months. And then, okay, what's the plan? And, that's the challenge of it, is that it's always evolving, but it's the beauty of it because you have that control to kind of make those decisions that's really going to fit your life and your practice. So
100%. My next question is, who are your favorite kinds of clients and or families to work with?
Well, I created Parade. So because I'm a queer SLP and I'm from a rural town in the South, I have been used to hiding for most of my life. And so that also included my career. And we're talking about, I'm not going to, I guess, give my age, but before, things were, before gay marriage, way before all of that, it was a different climate, especially in the rural South. So, I think I created Parade to really create a safe space for myself, but also for kids and families that are LGBTQ plus, affirming, or allies, or are looking for a diverse therapist for their child. That's really going to be inclusive and think about the materials that they're using, think about really creating that affirming space for kids. And I named it Parade to celebrate who we are. So I really love connecting with kids and families, that are looking for that type of therapist. And as far as, patients or kids that I treat, I love doing articulation therapy. I got really good at the R sound, which is kind of specific, but I don't know. I just have gotten a ton of referrals for R, and I love R now. I love it. I mean, it's just interesting. So I love the R sound. I love artic. I do have specialization in autism as well. And of course, the bilingual, different sources disorder. So evaluating to see whether or not a bilingual child who speaks Spanish and English has a language disorder or speech disorder, or whether it's a language difference, which is kind of the first thing we look at, and then being able to treat in both or either language is another specialization.
I love all of those things that you just said, right? I think it is certainly important for people to, have safe spaces for therapy. And I also think it's important for professionals to either be in safe spaces or in some cases create their own, right? I'm also a queer SLP, and that was one of the reasons why I was also interested in private practice, because I started my private practice when I was in my early 20s. And my first, Emily and I were messaging about this before we recorded, but my first couple of clients I wasn't out to. And I remember feeling a little bit weird about that, right? Because it wasn't with one client in particular, I was getting married, to my wife. And I needed to take a break for my honeymoon. And I hadn't told them that I was gay or getting married or anything. And so it was a really awkward conversation, let's just say, because I made it awkward, to be honest. But, I think that it's really important to lead with your values and lead with, whoever you are and whatever else, so that everyone knows, right? It's your business. And people can either, sign up for your business or not, right? But I think it's really important for there to be more diversity in the field, and also for there to be more diverse options for our patients. So thank you for being out there, pun intended, and and having a business and a company that supports LGBTQ plus people, especially in states like Texas.
Thank you for all of that. And I agree. And I just love that I'm able to create my own website, that has my bio with my wife on it. That was just such an awesome feeling to put all of that on there. And also to have on my, front page, just a very affirming statement for LGBTQ plus affirming, anti-racism, just a really affirming statement that, I welcome everybody into my practice and am working continually to be affirming of kids and families that are coming to my practice. And the other thing that I dreamt about before I did this practice was to partner or to be a member of the LGBT Chamber of Commerce here in Austin. And I was like, once I have my own business, then I can sign up to be a member as my own business and start to network with other queer people in Texas and Austin. In the business community. And so I did sign up for the Austin LGBT Chamber of Commerce. And then I ended up also joining the Houston LGBT Chamber of Commerce too, because I can see kids anywhere in Texas. And I just thought it would be great to network both here in Austin and in Houston. And then Dallas is on the horizon. They also have I think it's North Texas. But it's just been such a great opportunity for me to network with other queer people in Texas and to get the word out about my business and also about speech therapy and what we do and educate on that front as well.
Yeah. Because just to take it back to the beginning of the interview, just like you weren't really sure what SLPs did, right? And had to ask your sister SLP, right?
Yeah.
There are still plenty of people who have no idea what we do. And they may have family members or even themselves, have concerns about communication, speech, et cetera, that could really benefit from just, knowing an SLP through the Chamber of Commerce or whatever. Those are great opportunities really for, like you said, for networking, but also getting the word out about our profession and, well, how helpful we are.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely can see people, I say speech therapy and they're like, I had speech therapy as a kid, or, I can see them making those connections, but then they don't really know, again, what the extent of what we do. So it's been a great opportunity for me to, like you said, now be the one telling other people what we do. And so, and it's cool because, people are just like, wow, that's so cool that you work with kids. And, it's just, I don't know. I just feel very energized talking about what I do because I do love helping kids. And I really love helping kids and teens communicate who they authentically are, because that's really the goal of mine, is to be authentic in my work, bring my whole self to work and be my full self. And that's what I want to support kids and teens and their families to do, is to communicate really authentically in a way that really highlights that child and respects that child's uniqueness, but also helps them be able to communicate that uniqueness and that amazingness that is them to other people effectively.
Yeah. And I think that we are in such a unique position, because the kind of therapy we do involves a lot of talking, right?
Yes, we like to talk.
We like to talk, right? And sometimes our clients like to talk, sometimes they don't. But we are in a unique position, I feel like, to become trusted people in people's lives and whatnot, which I think is really important and is kind of cool about our profession, right?
Yeah.
My next question for you is, what does the future look like for you in terms of your practice? I know I had asked about, telepractice versus in-person or whatever, but, as you're kind of thinking about the next year or couple of years, what do you see? What is your vision?
Well, I really, continuing to learn about marketing. That's a huge one. So email marketing, I just started kind of dipping my toe into that. And just general marketing, getting the word out about my practice and my skills. And so continuing that process and, building up my caseload of clients. And really that's the main goals and continuing to connect with other people. I talked about the chambers of commerce, but also on Instagram, which I was really, before I did my business, I wasn't a big Instagram user or even Facebook user, but I was like, I'm going to make a profile for my business. And it's just been so amazing to see all the advocacy that's going on Instagram. Just the awareness campaigns and all of that. And so, connecting with other SLPs that are, raising that awareness for marginalized communities. That's a passion of mine. So connecting and also being having a platform where I can also advocate.
Well, and I think that that's important too, like as part of this, like choose your own adventure of your private practice, right? You can go in different directions, right? There's obviously like direct service, but there's also advocacy, and there's, for our clients, for marginalized communities, for our profession as a whole, whatever. But it's like, that's the kind of stuff that you have space and time and energy to do when you're in control of like your life and your business, right? So that's just another thing to kind of think about. I've had other guests on the show, for example, Sandy Dorsey, who has a nonprofit, Smiles for Speech. Mm-hmm. And, she has a very successful private practice in Manhattan, but she also has this, also successful nonprofit, right? That raises awareness. So it's nice to be able to have a business that also supports, your values and your mission, whatever that is for you listeners.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's so much freedom in that, and the ability to, think about what your values are and what you really believe in, and then, making that part of your business. If that's something that you're interested in, you have that freedom to do that. So.
Well, I want you to keep going, right? Like, I want you to keep, being a voice for those who need it in terms of clients, in terms of, our profession, various communities. Where can people learn more about you? If people want to connect with you on your website, Instagram, et cetera, where can they find you?
So the website is paradespeech.com, and my Instagram is @parade_speech. And yeah, those are the main two, probably the best ways to find me.
Perfect. Well, please, listeners, reach out to Emily, tell her that you were listening to the episode and what your takeaways were. And Emily, I can't wait to see you, continue to just, again, to grow in the way that feels good for you. And that is what you want to do, in your private practice and in your life. But thank you for coming on the show and for sharing your story. Like I said, I'm just excited to watch what the future holds for you.
Yeah, well, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for inviting me on. And I'm also excited to see what's in store. And I've appreciated all the support through the program. And I'm looking forward to, more support and just more growth. And it's all been so great. So thank you so much.
So how much do you love Emily? I love how she created a practice to serve a community that she cares about and is a part of, and how she's utilizing a service delivery model that works for her and her life. Now, as we mentioned throughout the episode, Emily got her start in the Start Your Private Practice system. And very soon, the doors for enrollment are going to be reopening. So let's make sure that you are on the wait list. Head over to startyourprivatepractice.com/waitlist and sign up to get notified. We only do a few big enrollments every year, and it'll be a great time, especially for folks who want to get their ducks in a row and start seeing pediatric clients over the summer and beyond. Now, when we do these big enrollments, we have a big cohort join all at once, which is great to be working through the comprehensive videos, checklists, and asking beginner-level questions all at one time. Emily mentioned that following the checklists really helped her. So if you're the kind of SLP who loves checklists, this program is perfect for you. We say that this program is not a do-it-yourself program, it's a done-with-support program. Myself, a team of established private practitioners who serve as mentors, and even a billing and insurance advisor are available to answer your questions as they come up. And the best part about it, you have lifetime access and you can go through the content as many times as needed and get access to new content as it's added completely free. We do cool things like social media marketing challenges to help you build your private practice caseload quickly so that you can recoup your investment with one client and the rest is gravy. Again, enrollment will be opening soon, but just for a few days. So let's make sure you're on the waitlist over at startyourprivatepractice.com/waitlist. I cannot wait to help you start your private practice.
I decided to invest in the Start Your Private Practice program because I honestly had no idea where to start.
And I just didn't really have the confidence or the know-how to be able to do that.
So it was really nice to have a system that was all set up for me. I didn't have to reinvent the wheel or start from scratch. It was all there for me.
And I was able to land a client within about the first week and a half of me going public with my private practice.
So now I have 12 clients. It is such an invigorating and amazing experience.
If you want help to start your speech therapy private practice, then head on over to startyourprivatepractice.com/waitlist so that you will be notified as soon as we reopen the doors to the Start Your Private Practice system. Again, that's startyourprivatepractice.com/waitlist. I cannot